everybody. Welcome to Unspoken Matters. I'm your host, Craig Irving. First of all, I'm very excited by today's episode because I finally get to sit down and have a conversation with a person who's very near and dear to my heart. Not only do I consider her a sister, a friend, she's my ex-colleague, she's my confidant, and when we having our discussions on this topic, and she doesn't agree with me, I consider her my sparring partner. Hey, everybody, say welcome to Regina Wadsworth.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Craig, for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be on Unspoken Matters today.
You know, the topic that we're going to talk about is something that I just said earlier. We talk about probably like 90% of our time on the telephone. We talk about it is the topic on what?
Leadership.
And you all get to eavesdrop and peer in on some of these conversations because I've been saying for the longest when we're talking, Regina, when I start season 2 of Unspoken Matters, I really do think we need to bring the topic and the conversation around leadership to the masses because everybody is looking for good leaders. So we're going to jump right into this conversation. And I'm going to start off by sharing with you my favorite quote on leadership by Colin Powell. And the quote is, "Leadership is all about people. It is not about organizations. It is not about plans. It is not about strategies. It is all about people motivating people to get the job done. You have to be people-centered."
Oh, wow. That's a good one by Colin. That's now my new favorite because I have lived that philosophy and that quote my whole entire career. Yeah, you got to put the people first. That's really what he's saying. Put your people first and the rest will come.
It's so funny. We were just talking about this the other day, and every time you say that, my mind goes back to Colin Powell's philosophy on leadership.
Yeah.
Regina, you know, when I look at when I first got into management and became a leader, it looks a lot different than it looks today. Like I said, we're in an environment where everybody, regardless if it's a corporation, churches, organization, everybody's looking for good leaders, which speaks to how much leadership has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Do
It's
you
definitely
think
changed.
the change has just been evolutional or has it been generational?
I think we've gotten a little bit of both. COVID has changed the world completely. And so I think people are just, or leaders are toying with, what do we do next? Is really what it's about. And you got the multi-generational employees that don't want to work at traditional companies now. They want to work from home. They want to have a lot more input on how they live their lives and how they work. And back in the day with traditional leadership, you were just happy to be working for this specific company and you were going to give it all you could. You didn't care if you had to go to work 7 days a week, work 90 hours a week. You did it. But we're not there anymore. And people want to spend time with their family. So now it's just a matter of finding that happy balance.
And I think, you know, one of the things that I'm seeing, I think we are much more of a politically correct, we're in a much more politically correct environment now, which is adding to the struggle that leaders have with leading individuals. And the two things that are very important, and I think you have to strike a perfect balance in, is holding accountability, and building strong relationships, because building strong relationships, that is the foundation of good leadership. What do you see as some of the struggles out there?
I think some of the struggles for a lot of leaders that I've encountered over the years is having that managerial courage. And you and I talk about that too. And I'm like, I just like to see people have the courage. And I know why some of them don't, because there's a fear. Because oftentimes they don't feel like they're in an environment where they can feel comfortable doing the right thing all the time. And because I'm in fear of what's going to happen to me, or I'm in fear of, am I going to lose my job? So you just got to have a safe space for all employees, and that includes the managers.
Do you think that's tied into, as I said earlier, we're in such different times, we have such a different generation that everybody is afraid to say, people are afraid to say anything. So they build these strong relationships, but now I'm afraid if I hold you accountable, that's going to look like something like harassment.
Yes.
You're ready to say, right?
We always know that's the big H.
Right, that's what I'm saying, right. You knew exactly where I was going.
Well, yeah, but you can't be afraid to do your job.
That's right.
And I think when you're going through that hiring process and you're going through that employee orientation, that really is the time to set expectations as well and keep talking about the expectations so employees understand that we all have a job to do. But at the same time, it also gives you an opportunity to hear what that employee has going on as well. So then you'll know, can we accommodate the employee? So all along, the employee's trying to determine if this is a place they really want to work. And you're trying to determine, is this an employee we want to be here at work? Yeah.
And I think employees really do want to be held accountable, but they want consistency.
Yes.
And I think that's the piece that we struggle with, is that, hey, if you hold me accountable, I want you to hold everybody else accountable. How do you lead managers or the people that you lead to ensure that they are being consistent in what they're delivering?
I think we should go through, again, setting the expectations, talk about policies and procedures. I mean, they feel like they got a lot of responsibilities, a lot of challenges. And so you just have to give managers and employees the bandwidth and the training to be able to do this stuff. So that's why having a relationship with an employee, having that frequent dialogue about do's, don'ts, it really does work. So just get out there and communicate. And that's one of those timeless principles. Timeless. Is you got to communicate. You can't be afraid to talk to the people.
You know, this podcast is titled Finding Good Leaders. And as I go through my travels and as I interact internally within my company, externally, just as I move about throughout the world, I see individuals that I think, wow, they would make a great leader.
They don't want to do it.
But they're not interested in it. The first thing I say, I'm not interested in that. Another question is that how, when you spot and identify great talent, how do you encourage them, or how do you paint a good picture that they would want to be a leader? How do you go out and do that? Because I think
be a leader with your company, because you are the company, so you're going to sell your own company. If they see you excited, they will be excited. When they hear you talk about the company, then they're going to get excited hearing you talk about your company. But if that's why you got to say, take care of your people. So they are these people that's going out identifying talent on your behalf. You don't have to do anything. They're going to see Craig is all excited. He's always happy. He's doing everything he wants to do. He makes good money. Hey, Craig, what do you do? I want to do what you do. Because people see it. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to share it. People will see it in you, evolving you.
I always say, and as we talk, I'm very cognizant of using the word manager versus leader. What do you think the difference is between a manager and a leader?
Managers manage processes and do all those things. The leader is someone that's trying to develop, giving you autonomy. They recognize this talent and trying to get people moved in different positions just to make sure the overall goals are being met. But so often when you promote leaders, they don't know how to let go of that previous job. So they got to be taught how to do that too. So mentorship is also important in corporations and creating pipelines for the next group of leaders. And so how do you do that? It just depends on your company. But you do need to sit down and collaborate how you're going to manage or lead the next generation of employees.
And I think what's important in leadership is sharing your experiences.
Absolutely.
And I think that is what growth is about.
Yes.
And I love looking back over my career. I've been with my company 34 years, but I've been in management 32 of those years. And I love sharing the things that I've learned, and especially sharing the areas that I've grown in, because I think it speaks to an opportunity that is available for another leader. One of the things that people would always, I'm sure they're going to laugh when they hear me say this, one of the things that I love to share is a book that I read called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, my favorite habit is seek first to understand before being understood. And it's virtually pretty much just saying,
stop waiting your turn to talk.
Exactly.
And just listen to the employee.
And and a lot of times early on in my career, I didn't realize I was doing that. But I would have a conversation with an employee, and I would be sitting here like you just said. I'm waiting for you to get finished talking. So I can talk. I can tell you. So that was a big lesson. When I learned that lesson, it changed the type of leader that I was. And I saw how people that I was leading responded to me differently. What is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned as a leader?
That is a lesson that I learned along the way, though, is stop waiting your turn to talk, because as we grow and we develop and we've been in these positions for long periods of time, in our mind we think that we are listening to a person. Meanwhile, we're distracted by our phone, we're distracted by our computer. Let me send this email. And employees are understandable. They understand, not understandable. They understand, but it's still rude. So to let people know that you are listening and that you're engaged and you're doing it intentionally, you got to give them some eye contact. So you're looking at them and you're listening to them and you're repeating some of the things that they're saying. And here's some things that we could do to maybe help you in this area. What else do you think you need? That kind of thing. So people really feel like you are investing in them. And now I really feel valued. I'm going to walk away feeling like they really do care about my success. So guess what? When I'm out here doing this work, I'm going to really care about making sure I do this right. You see what so I don't know, Craig. I think sometimes we can make it harder than it needs to be. And I think the biggest part is not being afraid to communicate with people in general and let people just know the expectations. And then you be open to hearing that's maybe not something I can do. And if it's not, then let's talk through that too. So everything is about a conversation, but we're not going to get anywhere if I don't understand you and you don't understand me and the expectations.
Yeah, because I really do think, and I'm not sure if I said this already now, but if I think it's worth repeating, I really do think employees are okay with being held accountable,
Absolutely.
although sometimes it doesn't feel good. I can
Yes.
tell you what people that have managed me, it don't always feel good.
But you're fair.
But you're fair, exactly. So that's what I was going to say. They're okay with being held accountable as long as you're consistent.
And being fair.
Yes.
And not only that, Craig, when you're holding somebody accountable, that includes having documented discussions. And sometimes as leaders, we don't want to do that because it doesn't feel good. And when you start talking to an employee about, well, now I got to go ahead and document, the thing comes up. What are we talking about? The shield.
The wall comes up.
The wall comes up.
Absolutely.
And the wall comes up because now I need to explain documentation. Because there is such documentation where it sounds like you are trying to get rid of me when this is the first time we've had a conversation. So you got to get into saying to them, hey, I'm not going to remember all the people I talked to, but I also want to capture that that you are being coached on to greatness. And I want to reflect that I do care about your growth potential here in our company. So your conversation is just what it is. Met with Craig to discuss how to do XYZ and let it stop there. And then explain to Craig, when you think your job is in jeopardy is when you're not performing, and we've been having these discussions and you're not responding to the coaching. When you respond to the coaching, there's nothing else to document. But when you're not responding, I'm constantly bringing you in because of some service failure or whatever that may be, then at some point I'm going to say, Regina, your attendance is, or your performance or your attendance is unsatisfactory. And I need you to correct that immediately. Here's some of the things we've already discussed. Is there any other thing that we can do to support you? And then my conversation is going to be, because failure to do what is going to lead to corrective action up to and including termination. That's when your flag should be coming up. You shouldn't be going into a meeting with your manager and then you're just fired, because then we haven't done what we're supposed to do. Because there is coaching involved. The goal is not to just terminate employees. We want you because we hired you, but we do want you to do the job that you said you were willing to do.
And another thing that you always say is do what you say, which in other words, operate with integrity.
Operate with integrity and operate what? I used to say this too. In excellence.
In excellence.
Because when you operate in integrity, the excellence is going to come. And when I'm taking care of my employees, that excellence is going to come. And then you get to go measure that excellence through stats and all these other things, but share it with them. Be excited. Share with them where you were and where you are now. People love seeing that progress.
Yes. Regina, what is your leadership style?
No, I'm definitely a servant leader. I'm definitely a servant leader. I like to do what the employees want to do, as long as it still falls under the scope of our roles. Now, don't get it twisted. I like to win, and I like to meet metrics. I used to play sports my whole career, so all I know is a scoreboard. But I also know you got to work within your team. We all have to play a role. And then if you don't like that role, let's find another role for you. But you can't fall down on the game. We're in this to win it. So we can't win if we're not doing the work.
So servant leader doesn't mean giving you everything you want. It means sometimes you have to say no. How do you say no with compassion and empathy?
Wow. And saying no is a part of leadership. And but if you've celebrated the small wins along the way,
Wow.
people accept your
Wow.
no's
Wow.
when you have to say no.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. You know, you just took me back to my early leadership days because I remember when one of the things that we were learning during our leadership training is that when you have to have a conversation with someone about a performance issue is not as painful as if along the way you've celebrated those wins that
That's
they've
correct.
had. And I think that's what sometimes leaders have a problem with, struggle with, finding time to celebrate the big wins, because the wins should be bigger than the losses. And oftentimes as leaders, we don't get to that point. We don't get to that point where we spend most of our time celebrating the wins. And it feels
But
like
it's got to be intentional, though.
it has to be
It
intentional.
has to be intentional because you'll find something that you need to be doing.
Absolutely.
But you have to also find that balance too with your work. Because one of the things I used to ask my leaders to do, the managers that reported to me, is I discovered that you spend too much time in the office. So I took away those things that kept them busy, like with busy work in the office. Because really, if you're out there spending time with the employees, it's not a gotcha moment. So nobody wants to feel like you're only out here to catch me doing something wrong. I want to know that you're out here because it's a learning opportunity. You get to hear some of my challenges of this, and I get to talk to you in real time, and we get to talk about the things that work and don't work. And so if you're doing those things and then maybe dedicating a couple of hours a day during a downtime where it's not that busy to administrative work, then that's going to work a little better. So some of the senior leaders, you have to take a look at that as well to know that if you're giving and giving and giving and more responsibility, how do they have time to get to know the employees and spend time with the employees? So we're saying two different things. We're talking out the side of our mouths.
If you had, Regina, if you had a magic wand, see, I'm giving you all this magic. If you had a magic wand and you can create the perfect manager,
Oh my goodness.
what attribute would you give them?
Can I give them more than one?
You can give them more than one. This is your lucky day.
I would say I would look for a manager that really likes people. They're very empathetic because if you don't like people, it doesn't feel good for me because I want to leave you with my babies kind of thing.
Right.
And so if you have a child, you don't want whoever your child care person to be abusing your children.
That's right.
So no, I want somebody that's going to be kind and somebody that's going to, love to talk, communicate effectively with the people, and somebody that is empathetic and has the ability, that emotional intelligence, because I can teach you how to do the technical side, but it's very hard to teach people skills.
Yes.
Or teach people how to be kind and not to be reactive to everything. You got to learn to diffuse things and not let everything internalize everything. And sometimes you run across the people that say, I don't like the way they said something. Try to get past how it's coming to you because everybody's not going to have the words that you want. Everybody doesn't have that same level of experience. So try to pull out what they're trying to say and then go from there.
Love it.
So don't be so quick to judge, in other words.
I absolutely love it. You know what? I can feel a part two coming on for this conversation.
That's good.
And I'm going to bring you back, and we're going to start building. Since I gave you the magic wand.
You gave me the magic wand.
Yeah, we're going to build the perfect leader on the next episode of Unspoken Matter.
Let's do that.
You know what? If you watch season, or if you listen to, because I didn't have this video portion of my season one, but if you listen to my first season of Unspoken Matters, one of the things that was most popular, I ended the show with this segment called If Only I Knew. And it came from a book that I read by Lance Wubbles titled If Only I Knew. So what I do is I'm going to give you one of my favorite quotes from his book. And then I'm going to toss the question over to you. I'm going to say, Regina, if only I knew, and I want you to finish that for me.
Okay.
So right now, I am going to read my favorite quote from his book. And that quote is, if only I knew that no word of love is ever lost, I would have allowed my tongue more freedom to truly speak from my heart. So
that's a good one, and that's a deep one.
Love that, love that. So now I'm going to toss it over to you and ask you to finish it for me. Regina, if only I knew.
I would have to say, if only I knew how to read minds. I will make the necessary adjustments for us to have a better world.
Oh, love that. Love it, love it, love it. Perfect way to end this show and put a
Yeah.
nice,
Thank
perfect
you.
bow on it.
Yeah.
Hey, Regina, thanks for sitting and chatting with me today. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
And you all, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Unspoken Matters, and we'll see you next time.